I'm Head of Business Development for Alstom in the UK and Ireland, and have spent a lot of time in recent years looking at how we could bring a hydrogen train to the UK, a train that we would build in this region, or we would convert in this region, I should say more accurately. Alstom itself, you may not know, I just need to give you a quick bit of background. We are a rail system supplier. Really, we specialise in sustainable mobility. We actually do buses, we do last mile route connectivity as well. Fundamentally, we work in the rail sector, and really you can claim the rail sector is a pretty sustainable means of mobility. The company is quite large, it's completely global, it's actually French owned or French based anyway, and as you can see, quite a wide spread. So we have a broad range of expertise and knowledge to draw upon, but we also need to relate very closely to the customer regions and the areas that we work in. And one of the things that Alstom has done most recently is to actually put into service the world's first hydrogen fuel cell powered train. It's called the Coradia I-Lint. It's operating in Germany, based out of a place called Bremerförde, which is just left of Hamburg on the map. If anyone wants to go, get in touch. We have regular visits going, you can ride it. It's a regular scheduled service, so you don't need to plan anything, particularly you just turn up. What's interesting is the process we've gone through to get to that train. So prior to 2014, we started thinking about it. We felt that it was the right sort of thing to do. I'll explain why in a moment. We announced that in 2014. No one really noticed, wasn't a big deal. We did it at the Global Railway Show, which you'll all know, of course. But it is quite a big show, it's massive, it's in Berlin, but no one noticed. In 2016, we unveiled the train. It looked exactly like this, very snazzy blue, nice hydrogen livery, great name with an I at the start, so we all know it's modern and happening. And everybody all of a sudden started taking notice. And in fact, we got stampeded with the interest of it. And that kind of illustrates the change in this room of going from talking about it to putting one in the space. It suddenly makes it real for people. And we've got that out in the car park, which is fantastic. We then went through the process of the final approvals. That takes some time. You've got to validate it as type testing of a completely new vehicle. And it entered service in September of last year. And 4 of us here in this room were actually on that train, the very first time it ever happened in the world that someone went on a train powered by hydrogen. So how about that? A world first. Autographs later. It's now done, as of today, they will have done over 100,000 kilometres in passenger service. And the first full fleet will enter service in 2021, and the second fleet has now been ordered for an additional 27 trains, so that makes 41 in total. Will go in service into 2022. Fundamentally, the reason for today between now and then is as much to do with introducing the fuel system and the refuelling setup as it is to do with the actual building of the trains. We can build them, no problem. But it's a classic thing. John mentioned earlier he could flood the market with Mirais, but he can't fuel them. We could do the same with the train. And the trains have to come with the fuel together. This is the concept for the UK. The model is over there, as was mentioned. We only announced that we were doing this last year. We unveiled it at the start of this year, and a little bit of commercial knitting to be done. That notwithstanding, there's every chance to be approved in 2022 into service by the end of that year or in the following year. So quite a short lead time, and in fact, were you to buy a diesel or an electric train, diesel perish the thought, but were you to do that, you could have it in about a similar time. So, but why have we done hydrogen in the first place? And the reason is it particularly suits a category of train traffic that we need to address. We call them regional traffic, regional trains. These are the areas which aren't ever expected to be electrified, won't be electrified, typically served by diesel at the moment. And we have, when you look at the other areas where market sectors of the rail industry, there are shortcomings. So on high speed, we have a very high energy and power demand. It's simply not logical to use stored energy. It's logical to electrify by wires. That's a little bit of a controversial view given the move towards bi-modes at the moment, the category at the bottom here, where you strap a big diesel engine and an alternative electrical pickup system on the train and you can drive it in both ways. Of course, you're carrying redundant kit all the time you do that. Trams may be necessary, may be relevant, but realistically, lots of ways to power them. But regional trains that do hundreds of miles a day and crisscross the country it makes perfect sense to apply the technology in that category. But just some stats behind that. So 29% of the fleet in Britain is powered by diesel. 40% of the network is electrified, and maybe we'll get to 50% in due course with future plans. That leaves 50% obviously not electrified. We need self-powered trains to operate the services on those railways. They are the community railways and the social service railways, if you like, that tie communities together across the country. That is important. And our mainstay of traction solutions was diesel, and that is going to go away. We were challenged by Joe Johnson, who was at the time the rail minister last year, to eliminate diesel-only trains from the network by 2040. A more onerous requirement, incidentally, than road vehicles. All they have to do is stop selling them on the roads by 2040. As long as the fuel's available, you can operate them. Not on railways. The objective is to take the diesel away. And that challenge sweeps up not just those regional trains I mentioned. It does impact high speed, because we have high-speed diesel trains in this country, and it does impact the freight sector. Now, we've got solutions for regional trains now. We're working on solutions for other sectors. We always have electrification up our sleeve. The railway knows very much about that. And there is a place for batteries, but they're relatively low range because of the very large weight and range requirements that we have on the railways. Each train fleet, roughly 10 trains, would require around 3 tonnes of hydrogen a day. This goes back to the points made earlier. This ties us into the energy sector very closely. The main thing about it is, though, you don't have to sit and wait for the trains to turn up on a will they, won't they basis. You've got those trains timetabled 364 days a year with a very predictable level of demand. And that means that investors can invest in the infrastructure necessary to support the train, and we can take decisions on the colour of the hydrogen that we use, the green, blue, brown, whatever you want to use. And we can put together a package around a train fleet that makes better commercial sense, perhaps, or easier commercial sense than direct selling to consumer markets. I'm sure many of you are aware of the relevant benefits of the different colours of that hydrogen. That's in carbon terms. Carbon kills us tomorrow. Clean air will kill us, or dirty air will kill us today. Of course, whatever hydrogen colour you use, you get clean air at the point of use, which is where most people are risking inhaling it. So the next steps are that we are now technically ready to do this. We need to go into the detailed development phases and the approval process, similar to what the Germans have done in Germany. And for that, we need to complete some business case work with, amongst others, the DfT, the operators and parties involved. So that is the triggering point that will then launch the process into approvals, developing both the train and the fuel station in parallel so that we can deliver them both to the timescales I described earlier. We hope to then see that resulting in future multiple fleet deployments, which will see the North West at the vanguard of hydrogen train production for years to come. Thank you.